Hi everyone, it's Kirstin Nussgruber here from Kirstin'sCancerCare.com, and today I wanted to focus on the topic of what shall I eat to help me get through my cancer treatments or to even prevent cancer recurring or even happening in the first place. Now, nutrition can be incredibly confusing, right? And that is why I've made that my passion. I'm, by the way, Kirstin Nussgruber from Kirstin'sCancerCare.com. You can tell I'm a little bit beside myself. I've just returned from 2 weeks overseas in Europe, and I'm not quite adjusted yet to being back in this time zone. So just forgive me. Sometimes the facts will be a little bit mixed up, but anyway, you've got my attention now, and I really want to kind of zone in on the so-called anti-cancer way of eating. And it came up again while I was actually in Europe, and it was partly family reunion because my family is spread out on 3 different continents in all kinds of countries, and we really have to always make an effort to fly to meet up. And in this instance, we kind of met up in the middle, and that happened to be Europe, Germany and Austria. And they have a very different culture to eating. They have similarly staggering cancer diagnoses every year, but when it comes to actually basic nutrition, they have a pretty much of a different approach. And I was discussing what I do with someone from a bit of an older generation, and they said, why is it so that people focus on trends these days? Eating a very specific way. Why this is a chef, by the way, and healthy. And he said, we need to look at other things as well, but these just following a specific trend isn't necessarily good for you. And if you look at the statistics of which population eats in a certain way, you can see that that doesn't necessarily mean you either have health or you have more disease. So when it comes to an anti-cancer way, or as I like to refer to it, a conquering cancer way of eating, it's a very similar approach here too. Is we need to understand that nutrition plays a huge role, a very important role. What role does it play? It's not a role that says it heals cancer, right? So nutrition alone cannot kill or heal cancer. We need to understand that the role that nutrition plays is in creating an environment in which the body is more able to fight cancer or to stay healthy. That's what we're contributing to, right? We're contributing to a body that is nourished, that has the right nutrients, that isn't inflamed, that is able to digest the food properly. Those are the parameters that we need to focus on, and that's what good nutrition does for us. So, of course, when it comes to trying to find evidence or research evidence, we have certain key directions, and that you've heard probably about the ketogenic diet. That's a very specific direction in which we basically cut out all carbohydrates, all carbs, and we focus on healthy fats to a very large degree, and also we focus also on proteins in moderate amounts. And the reason there is just that we kind of trying to manipulate the body into metabolizing food in a different way and creating energy in a different way, which is not conducive to cancer growth. Then you have the paleo diet, which is in a way similar to the ketogenic diet, but it still allows for a certain number of or amount of carbs. You have the macrobiotic way, which also in its own is a pretty restrictive way of eating. You have the vegetarian way, which we also know has great health benefits and is also used in certain cases and has been shown to be beneficial in reducing cancer markers in certain people. Some people have heard about the raw diet, right? Including raw meat, that is able to fight cancer. So the list is endless, and each nutrition direction you need to understand is in its own way pretty restrictive. It limits certain foods, it excludes others, it reduces exposure as well. We need to understand that really none of those specific directions are necessarily a direction that you want to stay with for life. They might be used in a therapeutic setting, and that really means that if you are fighting cancer, if you're in the stages where you are actively fighting cancer, that could be considered a therapeutic stage in which you're trying to achieve something with your style of nutrition. Okay, but that is only of a temporary nature, and it needs to be reevaluated, because you could have certain nutritional deficiencies or certain imbalances happening in the body if you focus on only a particular direction like that. So what I want to share with you tonight are 5 tips that would maybe help you decide which of these directions might be best for you. And what I also want you to know, that at the end of this, I'm going to post a link here. I actually have a guide on reviewing the different anti-cancer diets, and that is available to you if you click on the link that I'm going to post at the end of this. You may find that interesting to read through the facts that I have presented to you there. So what are the 5 tips? So tip number 1 really is, I always say, and that's really my foundational approach, is we are unique individuals, which means that you are different to your neighbor, to your sister, to your father, even to if you live in the same household, you're eating in the same way, you're exposed to the same environment, we're still unique individuals, and we need to take that into account when we are trying to find a nutritional direction that is best for us. So even if we are in a particular phase of our lives where we may be considering a therapeutic approach, we still have to then monitor and see how does that respond to us as a body, okay? Because we metabolize foods differently. We may have certain nutritional deficiencies that's unique to each of us. We may have certain digestive issues going on as well. We don't know those things, but those define us. That's what makes us individuals. And that's why if person A follows a very specific diet and person B does exactly the same thing, you may not have the same results. And that leads me on to my tip number 2, and that is observe yourself. Become familiar with your body and what's working for you and where your imbalances and weaknesses are. Because again, that's individual and unique to each of us, but we need to know that so that we can target these areas with our nutritional approach, or maybe understand why a certain nutritional approach isn't necessarily beneficial to us. So just to give you a brief example, for example, if you are considering following a ketogenic diet, and you have issues with inflammation going on in the body already, you have issues with cholesterol going on in the body already, we need to be mindful of that scenario, that underlying scenario, when we're now engaging in a diet that is very high in fat. So those are just parameters we need to look at. And of course, this is where functional testing comes in, where we can monitor our biochemistry, our metabolic processes, our genetic mutations, and our nutritional deficiencies. And we need to know that. We need to have a handle on that. And if we don't even do the testing, just take a step back, just feel in tune with yourself. How do you feel with certain foods? Because you know what? When we actually train ourselves to focus on ourselves again, you'd be amazed what your gut feeling says or what your intuition says about a certain food. We just tend to ignore those signs these days. We're just too busy, we're too distracted all the time, and we just haven't really learned to stay in touch and connected to our bodies and listen to the signs that it is always and invariably sending us. So tip number 3 is eat when you need to. Today we live in abundance. There's food aplenty available all the time. And we also feel that we need to constantly snack or nibble or eat, or we need to finish the portion sizes we get presented with on our plates. It is a kind of a habit that we have forgotten that our body kind of knows when it needs food. And just as a sidekick, when we are hungry, sometimes we're not hungry for food, we're hungry for something else. So to say, eat when you're hungry, I'm kind of a bit mindful there, because sometimes people say, well, I'm hungry all the time. That's a totally different matter. You could have digestive issues going on. You could have certain hormonal imbalances that mess with your a sense of when you are full, and messes with your appetite as well. So there could be imbalances there if you tell me, well, I'm hungry all the time, and that's something obviously we would look at if I work with you individually. But we also need to understand that for our digestion to work optimally, we actually need to allow our system, our body, not to eat for a substantial period of time. And this is where intermittent fasting comes in, which means that in between eating, we do not eat. We just, you can call it fast, but we just don't subject ourselves to food, and we actually give our digestive system a rest. Now, the interesting thing here is that we actually can engage in intermittent fasting every single day within a 24-hour period, because when we sleep, we don't eat, and that is a form of fasting. But for a cancer fighting point of view, for that to be efficient or beneficial, really, we have to allow a certain minimum amount of time in which we don't eat, and that is at least 13 hours. And that really means that you stop eating at a certain time and you do not consume any food until a certain time period again. And that is a true so-called fast. So eat only when you need to. There is no need to constantly snack in between. That is a habit that we've adapted. And to be quite honest, I found that to be in the United States quite a strong habit here. Also, when we raise our children, that we constantly have chips or things for them to snack. That is not necessary. Allow them to actually become really hungry, and then serve them real food, rather than keeping them nourished all the time. And then when it comes to meal times, they're not hungry anymore. So my tip number 4 is, what do I then eat? So what are your foundational nutritional tips, how I'm supposed to eat? If I'm not 100% sure which direction do I want to go in terms of an anti-cancer way, but what is your foundation? And that is really focus on a low glycemic, fiber-rich foods. And I'll explain what that means very briefly here. So low glycemic means that we want to focus on foods that don't raise our blood sugar levels too fast. We don't want that, because that can lead to an imbalance in the body. It can lead to metabolic disturbances, and that's exactly not what we want. It can feed into cancer. All right. So low glycemic, meaning we stay away from all the white starchy stuff, right? All the refined flour products, anything that has no or very little fiber can raise your blood sugar levels very fast. And then we have these fluctuating high blood sugar levels, low blood sugar levels. So we want to kind of eat in a way where the glucose that gets created from the food we eat gets released slowly over time, and our blood sugar levels remain steady over the course of the day. And of course, what is rich in fiber? Well, lots of vegetables, fruits fall into that as well, but plant fiber, right? So that's really the bulk of, which helps us also go and eliminate properly and have proper stools that can clean out from our intestines, right? So fiber-rich foods, low glycemic, stay away from the white stuff, eat a moderate amount of healthy protein, all right? We don't want to have too much protein, okay? If we are in the middle of chemotherapy, that's a different matter. Our protein needs rise very dramatically there too, but I'm talking generally now. We want moderate amounts of healthy proteins. What are they? It's lean meats are included as long as they're clean. Sourcing is very important, like chicken, even certain red meats in moderation. But for example, for some of us who are doing paleo or ketogenic, we do include animal proteins. Just make sure they're clean and you know where they're coming from. And other protein sources, of course, from the plant kingdom are legumes, right? Hummus is a great source as well. Nuts and seeds, right? Very important there too. In the fat direction too, healthy fats, right? We have the olive oils, we have coconut oils, we have real grass-fed butter, we have nuts and seeds there too. So avocados, and fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, also healthy doses of fat there. So we really need to be mindful of eating in a in an overall health enhancing way, and that is low glycemic overall, whether you're officially following ketogenic or not, but low glycemic is always preferable, including lots of fiber. And if you eat that way, you're actually allowed to have a treat now and then because you're balancing it out. Okay, everything in moderation. And I don't believe in deprivation, but I believe in smart choices. So that leaves me with the fifth tip, the final one, and that is portion sizes, right? You do not need to eat too much. You actually need to eat to a point where you're almost full, but you don't quite feel full yet. When we go out to eat, we often feel compelled to finish the portion sizes. We have habitually trained ourselves to eat more because we kind of stretch our stomach, and we ignore the signs of the body. That goes back to tip number 2, observe yourself, right? In that we don't listen to when the body says, I don't need more, and we eat with our eyes and sometimes also with our taste buds. If food tastes good, we want to have more of it. But portion sizes are very, very important. Keep them low, smaller. By all means, eat enough. You don't want to walk away from the food table starving, but you want to have manageable portion sizes. And also in relation to your physical activity, please bear that in mind as well. So if you are not physically active for some or other reason or can't be, then adapt your portion sizes, because otherwise you will put on weight, because we need to move our bodies, we need to burn off the energy. Otherwise, it turns to fat, and that's when we can put on weight. That is something that really happens to all of us in our more sedentary life these days. If we're working, if we're sitting working all the time, make that ratio, right? Your portion size to the level of exercise that you have. I mentioned that we just came back from Europe, these 2 weeks that we were there. We walked like crazy. We visited 4 cities, and although we used public transport, but we walked and we walked and we walked, and that was absolutely awesome. But that ensured we could eat, but we had that level of exercise as well. So again, I'm going to post that link here now at the bottom, so you can get this guide, a review of the trending anti-cancer diets and my 5 tips that I've just mentioned here. I love to share information with you, and I really am passionate about offering you evidence-based information so you can make the choice, right? There is sometimes no right or wrong. There is a choice that is right for you, and because we are all unique individuals and we all have a different story, be it cancer or not, but even if we all are cancer survivors here, we all have a different cancer story as well. We need to be able to make those decisions like I did. And we need to be able to go to sources that we can trust, because the information out there is just so overwhelming. So that is why it is my privilege to offer this to you and my honor to offer this to you, this kind of information. And I would love to see you engage. I would love to see you ask questions. I will pop into the site every now and then to see if there are any comments, and I can reply to them. If you want to take this further, if you have questions, I offer free assessment sessions. Those are 15-minute consults where if you have a burning question, I'm there to answer them for you at no charge. But sometimes you might just have a little question, you kind of on your track here, on your path, and you have a question. I offer 15-minute consult sessions. If you go to my website, which is KirstinScancerCare.com, again, that link will be posted, KirstinScancerCare.com. There's a scheduler there which takes you straight to my online scheduling link, and you can schedule your free session with me, 15-minute session. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have your input, and I'd love to help you on your way to taking charge of your health. So thank you for listening now, and I am blessed to have you as an audience. And please engage so I know what's going through your mind and I know what concerns you have, and I'd love to be able to answer them for you. So take care for now.